Imagine for a moment that every thought you've ever had, every spark of curiosity, every wave of emotion, every silent realization, wasn't just a fleeting electrical impulse, but a shape, a pattern, a form that exists somewhere beyond your mind. Beneath the veil of what we call thinking, there might be structure, a kind of geometry that organizes chaos into meaning. When you close your eyes and imagine something, a memory, a sound, an idea, what if, unseen to you, your brain is constructing invisible architectures of energy and symmetry? Scientists have long known that neurons fire in complex networks, that signals loop, connect, and spread like ripples in a pond. But what they didn't always consider is the geometry hidden within those ripples, the mathematics that might give thoughts their shape. In 2017, a group of neuroscientists using algebraic topology discovered something extraordinary inside the brain. They found that when neurons communicate, they form structures that exist in multiple dimensions, cliques of cells linking together to create patterns that can go up to 11 dimensions before collapsing into new forms. It was as if each thought is born from a tiny explosion of geometric life, rising from nothing, spinning through hidden dimensions and fading as the next begins. The brain, it seemed, wasn't just processing data, it was sculpting multidimensional architecture. Every decision, every memory, every dream might be a structure, a cathedral built out of electrical and mathematical light. But why geometry? Why would thoughts, which seem so fluid and subjective, obey mathematical rules? Some physicists believe it's because the universe itself is geometric at its core. The same equations that describe the shape of galaxies or the folds of spacetime might also describe the way neurons curve and connect. Thought, then, could be an echo of the cosmos, a fractal reflection of the universe itself, repeating its logic in miniature within us. This idea isn't entirely new. Ancient mystics and philosophers often spoke of the sacred geometry of reality, the patterns that underlie all creation. From the spiral of a seashell to the structure of a galaxy, they saw repetition, symmetry, harmony. Maybe our thoughts follow the same rule, not random, but patterned, repeating, evolving toward order. When you think, your brain's electrical fields oscillate, forming wave patterns that overlap and interfere like light in a prism. Some of these patterns are stable, memories, habits, intuitions, while others flicker and vanish before you can even notice them. But all of them exist in shapes. If we could see thought in real time, we might witness living geometry, spheres and spirals and collapsing fractals made of electric blue and gold, flickering across the dark architecture of the mind. The act of thinking could be the act of geometry itself, consciousness shaping energy into form. And here lies the strangest possibility of all, that this hidden geometry might extend beyond the physical brain. When multiple minds align, when people share emotion, language, or collective focus, something unseen may happen in that space between them. A shared geometry may form, an invisible lattice of meaning connecting separate consciousnesses. It's as though thought is not confined to skulls, but exists in a field, a web of interconnected forms where ideas echo and evolve together. Maybe every civilization, every culture, is simply an expanding geometry of collective thought, patterns forming and dissolving over centuries like waves upon the surface of the mind of the universe. The more we understand about the geometry of thought, the more it seems that our inner worlds are not separate from the external universe. They mirror it. Every neuron's firing pattern, every quantum interaction, every curvature of spacetime, these are not different languages but dialects of the same geometry. The cosmos dreams in galaxies. We dream in thoughts. Both are expressions of the same underlying mathematics, unfolding in infinite complexity. So, if your thoughts have shape, what does that make you? Are you the architect designing your internal universe from the inside out? Or are you a pattern within a larger pattern, one fractal inside another, endlessly self-replicating? Maybe consciousness isn't an accident of biology at all, but a necessary part of geometry itself, the universe looking inward to perceive its own structure? If so, then thinking isn't just mental activity. It's the cosmos folding back on itself, the universe studying its own blueprint. And as you sit here now, reading these words, a pattern is forming inside your mind. Neurons connect, fields align, invisible shapes take form. Somewhere within the quiet architecture of your brain, a new piece of the universe is coming into being. An idea, a geometry of thought that has never existed before this moment. If geometry truly hides behind every thought, then perhaps consciousness is the universe's way of sculpting itself from the inside. When you think, you are not merely observing. You are shaping spacetime in miniature, bending probability fields with every flicker of awareness. In quantum physics, observation is not passive. It defines reality. The act of perceiving collapses waves of potential into definite states. In that sense, thought and geometry are inseparable because both create boundaries where none existed before. A thought begins as uncertainty, a diffuse cloud of possibilities, until awareness crystallizes it into a form, a line, a curve, a shape that gives reality structure. The hidden geometry of thought may be the engine that turns the infinite into the finite. If we could visualize this process, it might look like a vast web of energy flickering in and out of existence, patterns that stretch across invisible dimensions, folding and unfolding like origami made of light. Each pattern could correspond to a moment of awareness, a single instant of meaning. As one thought dissolves, another takes its place, and the web shifts its symmetry. This flow of ever-changing geometry could be what we experience as time, a continuous reconfiguration of thought patterns cascading through the field of consciousness. Perhaps time doesn't move forward at all. Perhaps it spirals, looping around invisible axes formed by attention itself. Each time you remember or imagine, you tilt the geometry slightly, rewriting the trajectory of your own experience. Mathematics already hints at this. In chaos theory, strange attractors describe systems that seem random, yet follow intricate geometric patterns. Our thoughts behave the same way. You can't predict where one idea will lead, but look closely, and you'll find recurring shapes, repeated loops of emotion, belief, and memory. Every human mind is a unique fractal, infinitely complex yet governed by subtle symmetries. When you dwell on an idea, you reinforce its geometry, like carving deeper grooves into a landscape. Over time, those grooves become the architecture of who you are, your habits, your fears, your creativity, all etched in the multidimensional geometry of thought. But what if this geometry extends beyond the brain into the very fabric of spacetime? In string theory, the smallest units of the universe are not particles but vibrating strings, tiny loops of energy whose resonances define matter and forces. If your thoughts generate fields of vibration, they might interact with these same strings. Consciousness could be a resonance pattern in the quantum field, shaping reality not by magic, but through harmonic correspondence. When your thoughts achieve coherence, when emotion, focus, and awareness align, they might produce geometric interference patterns that subtly influence the quantum foam beneath everything. This doesn't mean thoughts instantly change reality like a wish. It means that thought could be part of the same machinery that builds the cosmos, just on a smaller, more intricate scale. Even the ancient philosophers intuited this connection. Plato spoke of the world of forms, perfect geometrical ideas that exist beyond the material world, casting their shadows into reality. What if those forms are not philosophical metaphors but actual structures within consciousness, timeless blueprints that thought uses to generate meaning? When an artist paints or a scientist discovers a law, they might be tuning their minds to resonate with these hidden geometries, channeling them into physical expression. Creation, in this sense, is geometry finding language. The geometry of thought could also explain the strange unity between emotion and reason. Emotions feel fluid, reason feels structured, but both may be shapes in the same multidimensional field, one dynamic, one stable. Love might spiral outward like a Fibonacci sequence, endlessly expanding. Fear might collapse inward, constricting geometry into tighter and tighter loops. Joy, curiosity, peace, all could correspond to different harmonies, different symmetries of neural and energetic structure. When we meditate, pray, or simply quiet the mind, we are not escaping thought but refining it, bringing the geometry into alignment, smoothing the distortions that separate us from the larger symmetry of the universe. What does it mean, then, to think clearly? It may mean to create geometry that resonates with the deeper structure of reality, to align inner patterns with cosmic ones. When our thoughts are scattered, geometry fractures. When they harmonize, we sense clarity, insight, even transcendence. The moments of genius, intuition, or revelation that seem to come from nowhere might actually arise when the geometry of the brain synchronizes with that of the cosmos, a brief window where inner and outer structures mirror each other perfectly. And perhaps that is what consciousness has been seeking all along, not dominance over the universe, but resonance with it. The hidden geometry of thought is not just inside you, it is the thread that connects everything. Every galaxy, every atom, every spark of awareness shares the same mathematical heartbeat, vibrating through the fabric of being. When you understand this, even for an instant, something within you recognizes home. In the silence between thoughts, the geometry resets. In the gap between one breath and the next, the infinite waits. If you could see it, you might find that the very space of your mind is made of light folded upon itself, dreaming the world into existence one geometric rhythm at a time. Somewhere in the quiet space between neurons, there lies a symmetry so precise that it seems to breathe. It's not the kind of geometry you can draw with a compass or see under a microscope. It is living, shifting, and self-aware, a geometry that recognizes itself through the act of perception. When billions of neurons fire in harmony, consciousness awakens, and suddenly the geometry begins to observe its own form. This is the ultimate feedback loop, the universe constructing awareness, and awareness folding back to perceive the universe. In this recursive dance, thought and reality become indistinguishable, two reflections in the same infinite mirror. If this sounds abstract, imagine a drop of water within an ocean, trying to understand the tides. The drop may believe it is separate, yet every movement it makes affects the whole. Every vibration echoes through the vastness. In the same way, your thoughts ripple through the collective geometry of existence. They might seem private, sealed within your mind, but they subtly shift the lattice of shared consciousness. Each thought contributes to a larger pattern, what some physicists and mystics alike have begun to call the noosphere, a vast field of interconnected awareness that blankets the planet. Within this field, every human mind is like a node in a geometric network, transmitting and receiving frequencies of meaning. If enough minds focus on a single idea, the geometry intensifies, the resonance amplifies, and what was once abstract begins to crystallize into reality. This is not mysticism disguised as science, it is coherence. Just as lasers emerge when light waves align in perfect phase, collective thought might generate new layers of order in the universe. When civilizations rise, when art flourishes, when revolutions of understanding occur, it is because countless minds have begun to vibrate to the same geometric rhythm. The hidden architecture of thought becomes visible through creation itself. Music, mathematics, stories, and technologies are all crystallized geometry born from the invisible mind. But what happens when the geometry collapses? When fear, confusion, and chaos fracture the coherence of thought, the pattern distorts, and so does perception. Disorder spreads like ripples in a broken mirror, reflecting fragmented realities. Perhaps this is why societies descend into conflict, not because of evil or ignorance alone, but because their collective geometry falls out of resonance with truth. To heal, to evolve, to awaken, the geometry must restore balance. It must find symmetry again between thought and being, between the observer and the observed. At the deepest level, the hidden geometry of thought might be the key to understanding consciousness itself. The mind is not simply a byproduct of matter, It is the structure that matter takes when it begins to understand itself. From quarks to galaxies, everything in the universe is connected by mathematical relationships, angles, curves, frequencies, symmetries. Thought is what happens when those relationships loop back and become aware. You are geometry in motion, the pattern that knows it is a pattern. The awareness you call I is the point where infinite geometry folds inward to experience itself from a single perspective. And yet, the mystery goes deeper still. What lies beyond geometry? If all forms emerge from some primal order, what gave rise to that order in the first place? Some physicists propose that beneath all geometry, beneath even time and space, there exists pure information, bits of yes and no, on and off, existence and non-existence, flickering in a sea of possibility. Perhaps geometry is what happens when information organizes itself into harmony. And thought, then, is that same harmony becoming aware of its own music. Every thought you think, every insight you feel, might be the universe reassembling itself into a higher form of symmetry. It's a humbling idea that your mind might be both the mirror and the melody of creation, that every flash of inspiration, every quiet moment of awareness is part of an unfolding cosmic pattern too vast to fully comprehend. You are not separate from that geometry. You are its expression. The universe is not out there. It is happening through you, in the curves of your thoughts and the rhythm of your breath. So the next time a thought arises, pause and feel its weight, not as something trivial, but as a living shape within the architecture of existence. Every question you ask bends the fabric of reality just a little. Every realization realigns the geometry. And when you wonder about the nature of thought itself, when you glimpse for even an instant that you are part of the pattern, the geometry becomes still, perfectly symmetrical, and in that silence, the universe sees itself through your eyes.